I gotta have some cool, like, music, like at the beginning, like or something like that. No? All right. Hi, my name is David Faro, and this is 1989, my podcast where I interview really interesting people who I also went to high school with. Today, this is the second part of my interview with Landis, Wyatt, and Kent Bubbs Jr. of Universal Outreach, where they talk about setting up a beekeeping industry in Liberia. Yes, you heard me right. A beekeeping industry in Liberia. Who do you know who's done that? Well, now you know Landis, now you know Kent, and this interview is one of my favorite things I've ever done in my whole life.
That started us on our journey into training beekeepers. And so
which has been fascinating to watch. I mean, Here I am with I'm gonna, I don't mean to belittle you, but this girl from Saskatchewan, and I'm seeing trucks going through rivers and beekeeping in the African jungle. And I mean, it's just so unbelievably exciting to watch, but also knowing that isn't glamping. You guys aren't, you guys went, and so that industry, because I want to get to the really exciting stuff, not that beekeeping isn't exciting, but I think what's exciting about it is you just weren't doing beekeeping, you were building an industry in the country, yeah?
Yeah, hence why we've been there for 15 years, because when you decide, like we're like, okay, let's train beekeepers, but yeah, it's not about just training beekeepers, it's about building an industry. And so we've been, we started by training beekeepers, but we've mentored Liberia's biggest honey packaging business for, how long has it been now, Kent? 10 years. And then there used to be about 10 beekeepers all in one county, but now there's thousands of beekeepers all across Liberia. We've built honey houses so that there's centralized honey collection facilities. It just goes on. And we've been in it for so long, and we've enjoyed it so much because we love seeing what economic development can do for a country. Because when you're poor, money helps change that.
Yeah.
And has put a lot of cash in a lot of people's pockets. So it's been fabulous.
And so, you both were building on a deep academic foundation of beekeeping, right? You both had doctorates in beekeeping, and you knew all the gear. And talk about that beginning part.
I prefer to be called the bee whisperer.
The bee whisperer? Did you have any idea what you were, really, did you know what you were doing when you said, let's start beekeeping?
I certainly didn't, but Kent.
I had a fascination with beekeeping for a long, long time. I actually guided up in northern BC and in Atlan with an older Austrian guide who was a beekeeper, and he got me really, really fascinated with the idea of beekeeping. So I just started consuming as much material as I could, just reading about it and learning about it. I eventually took a course in it, and it was all good, but we don't use the same systems in Liberia. So the general idea is good to have, but we use here we use what they call a Langstroth hive or a box hive. Over there, we use a Kenyan top bar beehive. It's a different bee species, so it's a whole different way of managing and acting and being around bees. So there was a lot to learn, no question about it. But the foundation was there for myself, and that's really where we started. We also brought in beekeepers from the UK. We brought a bunch in who were teaching Afrocentric beekeeping. So they weren't teaching the traditional European way. We had beekeepers from Cameroon, Nigeria. We had beekeepers from Argentina come, from America. So all over the world over the years, we've brought beekeepers in to train. So by no means was I the master trainer. But we were able to bring in the right players at the right time to help build the industry. We have, over 2,000 beekeepers we've trained to date. Those are now going out and training more. We speculated there's probably close to 5,000 beekeepers in Liberia now. We're bringing in, $50,000 worth of honey a year, US dollars. And that's money those farmers never had before, right? We've doubled, tripled, quadrupled incomes So, and it's an added source of income. We're not asking them to stop farming cassava or rice or Edo or whatever their main crop is. We're just saying, hey, why don't you add this? Because you don't need much space and you don't need a lot of time. So the interesting thing about agriculture in Liberia is it's all about energy in and energy out, right? So you have a certain amount of energy in you, which is the food you eat. If you're eating one meal a day, right? I can't tell you, well, don't be lazy, go and clear another hectare of land by hand, because you can't. You just can't. So adding these simple added income sources is a huge benefit to these farmers.
And I want to add to that too, is you're right. We didn't know a lot about beekeeping, but one thing we're really good at is finding people that are good at these things, and we're great facilitators. So we can see the need. We understand the lay of the land, and then we'll bring in the people that have the expertise to support accomplishing our vision.
So I have like 10 million questions. So we're going to have to do more of these interviews, but I'm going to tell you the questions that I would be asking if we weren't going to move on, because I'm very curious about being two white, Western, North Americans coming over there and doing this. So that must just be a very interesting thing to navigate over the years. And I also think that another question that could be a whole podcast would be about marriage counseling. I mean, you two are married. When you go home, you go. So I think that equation of your personalities fitting together, the grit that it takes to do this, the knowledge. I mean, I think that's something that we'll have to talk about again at a different time, because it's really laudable. It's really laudable. And I think that anybody who's been married and embarked on projects with people knows that there's an amplitude toward it. So this is just my small way of saying it is just really admirable and really cool that you've done this in such a, we've heard the story now of how you got to Liberia, why you went to Liberia. You chose one of the most developing countries in the world, and you've made it your home. And that's just an extraordinary feat on its own. But you also do something together that just, I was telling my kids about you guys, and they're like, hey, they're both cooler than your dad, like by leaps and bounds. So this is one of the cool parts, right? Is that they're in Liberia, where you're setting up this, like a movie level enterprise. What do you guys do to relax? What do you do? What is it that you guys like to do together on a sunny day? And then let's embark on that journey.
It was a totally different century, man.